Captain Hyun-woo was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming across Luna Station. The red lights flashed everywhere, and people ran through the metal corridors like scared animals. He put down his cup and walked slowly to the command center. His boots made soft sounds on the floor while everyone else was running and shouting. The main screen showed something that made most people stop breathing. A huge alien ship floated in space near Earth. It was bigger than any human city and covered in strange glowing symbols. The ship looked like it was made of black metal and purple crystals. Energy crackled around it like lightning in a storm. Lieutenant Minho ran up to Hyun-woo with sweat on his face. "Sir, we are getting a message from that thing. The aliens want to talk to all of Earth right now. They say it is very important." Hyun-woo nodded and pressed some buttons on his control panel. "Put it through to Earth Command and make sure everyone can hear it. This sounds like something the whole planet needs to know about." The screen changed and showed a creature that looked like it was made of living crystal. It was tall as 3 humans and had eyes that glowed like blue fire. When it spoke, its voice sounded like rocks grinding together, but somehow everyone could understand the words. "People of Earth, I am Vorth, speaker for the Galactic Council. We have watched your species for many years, and we are not happy with what we see. You have been moving through space without asking us first. You build colonies on planets that do not belong to you. You make weapons and ships without our permission." The creature paused, and the crystal parts of its body glowed brighter. "This cannot continue any longer. The Council has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. We decide which species can travel in space and which ones must stay on their homeworlds. You humans have broken our laws." President Dayun was in her office on Earth when the message came through. She had been reading reports about new colonies and trade agreements. Now she watched this alien creature tell her that humanity was in trouble. Her advisors sat around the big table looking worried and scared. The alien continued speaking. "Earth has 30 days to surrender all military ships and weapons. You will stop building new colonies and bring back all humans from planets we have not approved. Your leaders will come to our ships and accept that humans are a lesser species in this galaxy. If you do not obey these commands, we will destroy your civilization to show they were serious." The alien ship fired a beam of energy at an old mining station near Jupiter. The beam was bright purple and made no sound in space, but when it hit the station, everything exploded into tiny pieces. The explosion was so bright that people on Earth could see it with telescopes. Vorth spoke again. "That was using only 1% of our power. We have destroyed thousands of species who did not listen to the Council. You humans are young and stupid, but we will give you this one chance to survive. Think carefully about your choice." The message ended, and the alien ship just floated there, waiting. People all over Earth started panicking. Some cities had riots and others had people praying in the streets. The news channels talked about nothing else, and everyone wanted to know what their government would do. President Dayun called an emergency meeting with her top people. Defense Minister Soo-jin looked pale as she read reports about the alien ship. Admiral Kyung-soo studied the energy readings from their weapon and shook his head. The numbers were scary, but something felt wrong about all of this. "We need to respond to them soon," Dayun said. "What do our scientists say about their technology?" Dr. Young-hee opened her tablet and read from her notes. "The energy weapon is powerful, but not as advanced as they want us to think. We have been studying alien technology for 20 years from crashed ships and trading posts. Their science is old, and they do not seem to innovate much." Ambassador Jinho had been quiet during the meeting, but now he started laughing. Everyone looked at him like he was crazy, but he kept laughing until tears came from his eyes. "What is so funny?" Soo-jin asked. "This is the most serious threat humanity has ever faced." Jinho wiped his eyes and smiled. "These aliens think they can just show up and tell us what to do like we are children. They destroyed an empty mining station and think that scares us. Do they know what humans did to each other in our wars? Do they know we split atoms and traveled to other stars when we were still fighting with metal swords?" The room got quiet as everyone thought about this. Jinho was right. Humans had survived ice ages and world wars and plagues. They had built cities and spaceships and learned to work together even when they disagreed about everything else. Admiral Kyung-soo looked at the energy readings again and started to smile too. "Their ship is big and their weapon is strong, but they are not gods. They bleed and they can be beaten. We have been preparing for something like this without knowing it. Dayun stood up and walked to the window that showed Earth. Spinning below them with its blue oceans and white clouds, millions of humans lived down there, and they were all counting on their leaders to protect them. But maybe protection meant something different than what the aliens expected. Call the alien. Ship Jin-ho, she said, I want to speak to this Vorth creature personally. The communication screen activated and showed the crystal alien again. It seemed surprised that humans were responding so quickly. Most species took days to answer after seeing. The Council's power. I am President Dayun of Earth. You have made your demands and shown us your weapon. Now I will give you our answer. Vorth leaned forward, expecting to hear words of surrender and fear. Instead, Dayun smiled politely and spoke in a calm voice. We appreciate your concern about our activities in space, but we must decline your generous offer to rule over us. Humanity will continue to build colonies and explore the galaxy as we see fit. Our military will remain fully operational, and we will not be accepting lesser species status. The alien creature made a sound like breaking glass. Vorth could not believe what he was hearing. No species had ever refused the Council's ultimatum before. They always begged for mercy or tried to negotiate for better terms. You do not understand the consequences of defying us, Vorth said angrily. We will destroy your entire civilization and erase you from history. Jin-ho stepped forward and spoke directly to the alien. We understand perfectly. You are bullies who use fear to control others, but humans do not respond well to threats. We have a saying on Earth that goes, mess with the bull and get the horns. The alien ship started moving away from Earth, but Vorth spoke one more time. You have made a mistake that will cost you everything. We will return with the full might of the Council, and you will regret this foolishness after. The communication ended. The room was silent for a long moment. Then Admiral Kyung-soo started laughing, and soon everyone joined in. They had just told the rulers of the galaxy to go away, and somehow it felt good. Yun looked out at Earth again and thought about all the humans who would hear about this decision. Some would be scared and some would be angry, but most would understand that sometimes you have to stand up to bullies even when they are bigger and stronger than you. 30-day countdown had begun, but nobody in that room was planning to surrender. They were planning to fight and maybe even win against impossible odds, because that is what humans do when someone tries to tell them they cannot be free. Outside the window, Earth kept spinning and life went on. People worked and played and loved each other while their leaders prepared for the biggest challenge in human history. The aliens thought they knew what humans were like, but they were about to learn something. New humanity had just declared war on the galaxy, and they were not scared at all. 2 weeks had passed since the Council gave their ultimatum, and Commander Krex was getting impatient. The reptilian alien had scales that changed color when he was angry, and right now they were turning dark red. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching 50 Council warships move through space toward the human colony on Kepler-442b. This will be easy, Krex thought to himself. Humans are just another primitive species that needs to learn their place in the galaxy. Once we destroy this colony, the rest of them will surrender quickly and we can go back to more important things. The colony planet looked peaceful from space with its blue oceans and green continents. Human ships had been seen leaving the system all week carrying colonists away from the danger. Everyone knew the Council was coming and they were running like frightened animals. When the fleet arrived at the planet, only one human remained. Colonel Min-soo stood alone in the colony command center while empty buildings surrounded him. The aliens could see him through their sensors, sitting calmly at his desk, drinking something hot from a white cup. Krex opened a communication channel to the human, expecting to hear begging or desperate offers to negotiate. Instead, Min-soo looked up from his drink and smiled like he was greeting an old friend. Good morning, Commander Krex. I hope your journey through space was pleasant. Would you like some coffee before we begin? I just made a fresh pot and it smells wonderful. The alien commander was confused by this response. Every other species they had faced either attacked immediately or surrendered in terror. This human seemed to be offering them drinks while staring down 50 warships. Where are the other colonists? Krex demanded. We detected thousands of humans on this planet last week. Min-soo took another sip of his coffee and nodded. They have been relocated to safer positions for their own protection. We did not want any innocent people to get hurt during What is about to happen? Krex felt his scales turn an even darker shade of red. This human was speaking to him like the Council fleet was not a threat at all. Like 50 advanced warships meant nothing to someone sitting alone in an empty building. We'll surrender this colony immediately, Krex said through gritted teeth, or we will destroy everything on this planet, starting with Yominsu. Looked thoughtful for a moment, then shook his head politely. I appreciate the offer, but I must decline. However, I am curious about your weapons technology. Our scientists have been studying Council ships for many years, and we have some questions before Krex could respond. Minsu pressed a button on his control panel. Suddenly, energy shields appeared. Around all the colony buildings, the shields glowed with a soft blue light and seemed to pulse like they were alive. The alien commander was annoyed by this display of defiance. He ordered his ships to fire their plasma cannons at the colony. Bright beams of energy shot through space and struck the human shields, expecting to burn through them instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The shields absorbed the energy completely and seemed to grow brighter the more the Council ships fired. The stronger the shields became. Minsu watched the display on his screen and nodded approvingly. Interesting, Krex, he said. Your energy weapons are quite powerful, but they work on very simple principles. We have made some improvements to the basic design that your people use. Minsu pressed another button, and the absorbed energy suddenly shot back at the Council fleet. The redirected beams struck 3 alien ships, and their shields collapsed immediately. The ships went dark and started drifting through space while their crews scrambled to restart their systems. How is this possible? Krex shouted at his science officer. The human technology should be centuries behind ours. The science officer was a thin alien with 4 arms who was frantically checking his instruments. Commander, their shields are not just blocking our weapons. They are using our own energy against us. I have never seen anything like this back on the planet. Minsu was talking to someone on his communication device. Dr. Hey-1. Are you recording all of this data? The Council weapons are exactly what we expected based on the crashed ships we found in a hidden laboratory deep underground. Dr. Hey-1 was watching everything through sensors placed around the colony. She had been working for 15 years to understand alien technology, and now she was seeing the results of her research. Yes, Minsu, everything is being recorded. Their energy weapons use focused plasma just like we thought. The quantum absorption matrix is working perfectly. We can redirect their power back at them without any loss of efficiency. Dr. Hey-1 had discovered that Council technology was very old and had not changed much in thousands of years. The aliens were so used to being the most advanced species in the galaxy that they had stopped innovating. Their weapons were powerful but predictable. Meanwhile, in Earth, Space Captain Yunji was training her fighter pilots using new tactics developed specifically for fighting Council ships. The aliens flew in rigid formations and used computer calculations to aim their weapons. Human pilots were learning to be unpredictable and creative. The Council relies on logic and mathematics, Captain Unji told her squadron, but humans can think in ways that their computers cannot predict. We will use this advantage when the real fighting begins. Back at the colony, Krex was trying to understand what had happened to his ships. The 3 damaged vessels were slowly getting their power back, but their crews were shaken. They had never been defeated by a single human before. Minsu was still sitting calmly in his command center watching the alien fleet through his monitors. Commander, Krex, would you like to try a different approach perhaps? We could discuss this situation like civilized beings. The alien commander felt his pride had been wounded in front of his entire fleet. He ordered all 50 ships to fire at once, thinking that overwhelming force would break through the human defenses. The result was spectacular. Every energy beam fired by the Council fleet was absorbed by the colony shields and then redirected back at the aliens. The redirected energy struck the fleet like a giant hammer, causing ships to spin out of control and emergency alarms to sound throughout the alien formation. Dr. Youngsu was watching from Earth orbit, where he had been testing new propulsion systems based on alien designs. The human engineer smiled as he saw the Council fleet retreating in disorder. They still do not understand, he said to his assistant. We are not trying to match their technology, we are improving it. Every piece of alien equipment we have studied has taught us something new. The Council fleet limped away from Kepler 442b with 15 ships damaged and their confidence shattered. Krex sent a message to the Council. Leadership reporting that humans possessed unknown defensive capabilities and recommended sending a larger force. Minsu finished his coffee and stood up to stretch his legs. The colony was safe and the shields were still glowing softly around the empty buildings. He activated his communication device to report to Earth Command. Mission accomplished, he said simply. The Council has learned that humans are not as helpless as they thought. Our defensive systems worked exactly as Dr. Haywan predicted. Around the galaxy, word spread quickly that the mighty Council fleet had been defeated by a single human at an empty colony. Some species whispered that maybe the Council was not as powerful as everyone believed. Others began to wonder if resistance was possible. Council leadership was deeply concerned by these reports. They had ruled through fear for 50,000 years, and now that fear was beginning to crack, a few defeats by humans could inspire rebellions across their entire empire. On Earth, President Dayun received the report about the successful defense of Kepler 442b. She smiled as she read about Minsu offering coffee to the alien commander, and Dr. Haywan turning their own weapons against them. The aliens are learning that humans do not scare easily, she said to her advisors. They came expecting to find a weak species, but instead they found engineers and soldiers who had been preparing for this moment. Admiral Kyung-soo was already planning the next phase of Earth defenses. The Council would return with more ships and stronger weapons, but humanity would be ready with new surprises. The galaxy was about to discover that threatening humans was a very dangerous mistake. The Council was angry after their defeat at Kepler 442b. and decided to show humanity what real power looked like. They assembled 200 warships from 6 different alien species and pointed them all at Earth. The massive fleet was the largest military force seen in the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Supreme Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship and watched Earth grow larger on the screen. The blue planet looked so peaceful and small compared to the armada that was about to destroy it. Soon these arrogant humans would learn why the Council had ruled the galaxy for so long. We will crush their orbital defenses first, Vex told his officers. Then we will destroy their cities one by one until they surrender. Any species that dares to challenge the Council must be made an example for the rest of the galaxy. The alien fleet expected to find simple human stations orbiting Earth. Instead, they discovered a network of massive battle platforms that looked like they had been built by a much more advanced civilization. The platforms were covered in weapons that hummed with dangerous energy. Commander Tae-hyun sat in the command center of the largest orbital fortress, watching the Council fleet approach through his screens. He had been waiting for this moment for months, ever since Earth began upgrading their defenses using alien technology. All stations report ready, Sir. Lieutenant Ha-young said from her position at the communications console. The quantum torpedoes are armed and the phase shields are at maximum power. Tae-hyun nodded and opened a channel to the approaching fleet. This is Earth Defense Command to the Council fleet. You are entering protected space and must leave immediately or face the consequences. Supreme Commander Vex laughed when he heard this message. A few human platforms were threatening his massive armada. The aliens had energy weapons that could destroy planets and shields that had never been broken by any known force. You humans are even more foolish than we thought, Vex replied. We have come to destroy your civilization, and nothing you have built can stop us. The Council fleet opened fire with every weapon they had. Hundreds of energy beams shot through space toward the human platforms. The aliens expected to see explosions and debris floating in space. Instead, something incredible happened. The human shields did not just block the alien weapons, they seemed to make the energy beams disappear completely. The shots vanished the moment they touched the blue energy barriers surrounding each platform. Dr. Sung-ho was monitoring the battle from a hidden control room deep inside the moon. He had spent 3 years developing dimensional barrier technology that could redirect attacks into parallel dimensions. The phase shields are working perfectly, he reported to Admiral Kyung-ho. Their energy is being sent to empty dimensions where it cannot hurt anyone. Our platforms are completely protected, but the humans were not content to just defend themselves. Commander Tae-hyun gave the order to return fire, and the orbital platforms unleashed weapons that the Council had never seen before. The quantum torpedoes moved through space in ways that seemed impossible. They phased through The alien shields like they were not there and exploded inside the council ships. The aliens watched in horror as their most advanced defenses proved useless against human weapons. How are they doing this? Vex demanded from his science officer. Our shields are designed to stop any known weapon in the galaxy. The science officer was a creature with 6 eyes, who was frantically checking his instruments. Commander, their weapons appear to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. They can pass through our shields because they are not entirely in our reality. Captain So Young led a squadron of human fighters that launched from the orbital platforms. The small ships moved with incredible speed and agility, making turns that should have been impossible. The council pilots tried to target them, but the humans seemed to predict every move. The alien tactical computers were designed to fight logical opponents who followed predictable patterns. Human pilots used intuition and creativity, making split-second decisions that no computer could calculate. The council formations started to break apart under the unpredictable human attacks. Meanwhile, the human platforms continued firing their dimensional weapons. Each shot that hit a council ship caused massive damage because the aliens had no defense against weapons that existed in multiple realities at once. Supreme Commander Vex watched his fleet being destroyed by forces he did not understand. Half of his ships were already dead or drifting powerless through space. The humans had not lost a single platform. This is impossible, he said to himself. The Council has the most advanced technology in the galaxy. How can these primitive humans be defeating us? Admiral Kyung-ho was coordinating the battle from Earth Orbital Command, watching the Council fleet fall apart under human attacks. He had been planning this defense for years, knowing that eventually the aliens would come in force. The enemy flagship is surrounded by our fighters, Lieutenant Min Kyung reported. Should we destroy it? Kyung-ho thought for a moment, then made a decision that surprised everyone. Open a communication channel to their commander. The screen showed Supreme Commander Vex looking defeated and confused. His flagship was surrounded by human fighters and his fleet was scattered and broken. I am Admiral Kyung-ho of the Earth Defense Force, he said politely. Your fleet has been defeated and your ships are at our mercy. Would you like to discuss terms for surrender? Vex could not believe what he was hearing. In thousands of years of conquest, no enemy had ever offered the Council terms. They had always been the ones making demands and threatening destruction. You would let us surrender? He asked. Why? Are you not destroying us like we plan to do to you? Because that is not how humans fight wars, Admiral Kyung-ho replied. We defeat our enemies when necessary, but we do not enjoy killing. We would rather have peace than revenge. The Council fleet retreated from Earth space, leaving behind 60% of their ships as wreckage. The aliens limped back to their homeworlds, carrying news that would shake the entire galaxy. The mighty Council had been defeated by humans, who offered mercy to their enemies instead of destruction. This news spread quickly through alien space, and many species began to wonder if rebellion was possible on Earth. The victory celebration was mixed with preparation for what would come next. President Dayun knew that the Council would not accept defeat easily and would return with even more ships. They will come back with everything they have, she told her advisors, but now the galaxy knows that the Council can be beaten. Other species will be watching to see what happens next. Dr. Young-soo was already working on new weapons and defenses, knowing that the next battle would be even more dangerous. The Council would adapt their tactics and bring weapons they had never used before, but humanity had something the Council did not understand. They had the support of species who had been oppressed for thousands of years and were now ready to fight for their freedom. The first battle was over, but the real war was just beginning, and humans had shown the galaxy that sometimes the smaller force could win through courage and intelligence rather than brute strength. The Council was learning that threatening humanity had been the biggest mistake in their long history of conquest. News of the Council defeat spread across the galaxy faster than light travel itself. On the mining world of Vega 7, alien workers heard the impossible story that humans had destroyed 60% of a Council fleet without losing a single ship. The workers, who had been slaves for generations, suddenly stopped working. Foreman Zach was a Council loyalist who had kept the mining operation running for 50 years. He watched in disbelief as thousands of workers gathered in the main cavern talking Excitedly about rebellion get back to work, he shouted at them, "The council will punish us all if production falls behind schedule," but the workers were not listening anymore. A young alien named Kier stood up on a mining cart and spoke to the crowd. "If humans can defeat the council fleet, maybe we can defeat the council guards here." On Vega 7, the idea spread like wildfire through the mining complex. Workers who had never dared to complain about their conditions suddenly began refusing orders. Similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds as news of humanity victory inspired hope in species that had forgotten what freedom felt like. Ambassador Ji-Yun arrived at Proxima Hub 3 days after the battle. The neutral trading station was buzzing with activity as representatives from hundreds of species gathered to discuss the incredible news. Every conversation was about the same thing: humans had proven the council could be beaten. The trading station was a massive structure that rotated slowly in space, creating artificial gravity through centrifugal force. Beings from all over the galaxy came here to trade goods and information without council interference. Walked through the crowded corridors, listening to dozens of languages being spoken at once. She had come here hoping to make contact with species that might be interested in joining humanity against the council. A small furry alien approached her cautiously. "Are you really one of the humans who defeated the council fleet?" he asked. His voice was high and squeaky, but filled with wonder. "Yes, I am Ambassador Ji-Yun of Earth," she replied. "What is your name, friend?" "I am Pip of the Varian people," he said. "We have been under council rule for 800 years. They took our homeworld and made us work in their factories. We thought we would never be free." Ji-Yun listened to similar stories from dozens of species throughout the day. Each one told of cultures destroyed, languages forbidden, and freedom stripped away by council conquest. Many had not spoken their native languages in generations. The council had ruled through fear for so long that most species had forgotten they could resist, but humanity victory had cracked that fear, and now hope was spreading through the galaxy like a virus. Meanwhile, on the council homeworld, emergency meetings were being held in the great crystal chambers where the ruling council made their decisions. The 12 species that controlled the galaxy were in panic. The Prime Dominator was an ancient being who had ruled the council for over 10,000 years. He had never faced a crisis like this before. In all his long life, no species had ever successfully resisted council authority. "How is this possible?" he demanded from his advisors. "Humans are a young species with primitive technology. How did they defeat our most advanced fleet?" General Korth was the council military commander, and he had been studying the battle reports for days. "Commander, their weapons operate on principles we do not understand. They can pass through our shields, and their defenses can redirect our own energy back at us." The Prime Dominator felt something he had not experienced in millennia: fear. If humans could defeat the council military, then their entire empire was in danger. Other species would see this victory and begin to rebel. "We must use the Star Render," he declared. The ultimate weapon had been hidden for 50,000 years and had never been used defensively. It could destroy entire solar systems and would surely eliminate the human threat. The Star Render was brought out of storage and prepared for use. The massive weapon was larger than most space stations and required the combined power of 12 council worlds to operate. When it fired, the energy beam could crack planets in half, but when the weapon was aimed at Earth's solar system, something impossible happened. The beam simply vanished. When it contacted the outer edges of human space, the Star Render energy disappeared completely, as if it had never existed. Dr. Sung-ho was monitoring the attack from his laboratory on the moon. He had spent months developing dimensional barriers that could redirect massive energy attacks into parallel dimensions. "The Star Render has been neutralized," he reported to President Dayun. "Their ultimate weapon cannot penetrate our dimensional shields. The energy has been sent to an empty dimension where it cannot hurt anyone." The failure of their ultimate weapon sent shockwaves through the council leadership. For the first time in their existence, they faced an enemy they could not intimidate or destroy. Emergency sessions were called as panic spread through the ruling chambers. Some council members suggested immediate negotiation with the humans, while others demanded total mobilization of every ship in the Galaxy A. Few even proposed abandoning their empire and retreating to their core worlds. During all this chaos, humanity continued expanding into space as if nothing had Happen new colonies were established on worlds that had been forbidden by Council law. Human traders opened routes through territories that had been Council monopolies for thousands of years. Captain Dongwu led an expedition that made contact with the Centauri Republic, a group of species that had been trying to resist Council rule for centuries. The aliens were amazed to meet humans who traveled freely through Council space without fear. You really defeated their fleet, the Centauri leader asked in wonder. We have been fighting the Council for generations and never won a single battle. Captain Dongwu smiled and offered to share human technology and tactics with the Centauri forces. Soon we will not be fighting alone. Many species are ready to join us against the Council. The rebellion that had started with humanity example was growing into a full-scale galactic revolution. Species that had been enemies for centuries were uniting against their common oppressor, the Council on Earth. President Dayun received reports from all over the galaxy about uprisings and rebellions. Inspired by humanity victory, she knew that the Council would soon respond with everything they had. They will unite all 12 species and bring every ship they can find, she told her advisors, but now we have allies who are ready to fight beside us. The galaxy is changing and the Council can no longer rule through fear alone. Dr. Hyjin was working on new weapons that would be needed for the coming battle. She had developed technology that could make human ships appear to teleport instantly between locations, making them impossible to target. The Council had ruled the galaxy for 50,000 years, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Humans fought with creativity and courage while the Council relied on fear and overwhelming force. As rebellions spread across the galaxy, the Council realized that their entire way of life was under threat. They had always been the predators, but now they were becoming the prey. The final battle was approaching, and for the first time in galactic history, the outcome was not certain. The Council had more ships and more advanced technology, but humans had something more valuable. They had the support of every species that dreamed of freedom. The galaxy was about to discover that sometimes the greatest empires fall not to superior force, but to the simple idea that all beings deserve to be free. The Council made their final desperate decision in the crystal chambers of their homeworld. The 12 ruling species had never worked together like this before, but the human threat had united them in fear. They would gather every ship, every weapon, every soldier from across their empire for one last battle. The Prime Dominator stood before the assembled Council leaders, his ancient voice echoing through the chamber. We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years, and we will not let it end. Because of one primitive species, over 10,000 ships began moving toward the edges of human space. The largest military force in galactic history was being assembled. Ships that had not seen battle in millennia were pulled from storage. Ancient weapons were activated and long-forgotten alliances were called upon. General Wu Jin watched the massive fleet approaching through Earth long-range sensors. The human military commander had been preparing for this moment since the first Council ultimatum. He knew they would eventually come with everything they had. Sir, the enemy fleet is enormous. Lieutenant Sojin reported, we are detecting ships from all 12 Council species, including vessels we have never seen before. Wu Jin nodded calmly. How many ships? Total over 10,000, sir, and they are all heading directly for Earth. The human commander smiled grimly. Then we will give them a welcome they will never forget. Dr. Hyjin had been working around the clock to prepare new weapons for the final battle. Her latest invention could make human ships appear to teleport instantly between locations, while her improved shields could adapt to any weapon in real time. The quantum displacement drives are ready, she reported to Admiral Kyung Ho. Our ships can now move faster than light without using hyperspace. The Council will not be able to predict our movements. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, species that had been under Council rule for thousands of years were preparing to join the fight. The rebellion that had started with humanity example had grown into a full-scale revolution. Ambassador Ji Yun coordinated with rebel leaders from hundreds of different worlds. The variant people had stolen Council weapons from their factories. The Centauri Republic had mobilized their entire fleet. Even species that had been enemies for centuries were working together against their common oppressor. We have allies coming from every corner of the galaxy, she reported to President Dayun. They may not have the best ships, but they have something the Council has forgotten: how to fight with desperation and Hope the massive council fleet arrived at the edge of human space expecting to find a few dozen human ships. Instead they encountered something that shocked them. Over 3,000 vessels waited in formation, but only half were human. The rest belonged to species that were supposed to be under council control. How is this possible? The Prime Dominator demanded from his flagship. Bridge, half the galaxy is supposed to be loyal to us. General Korth was studying the sensor readings with growing alarm. Commander, we are detecting ships from over 200 different species. Many of them are using modified council weapons against us. Captain Jamin led a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels that demonstrated something the council had never seen before. Instead of fighting as separate units, the different species worked together like parts of a single organism, the human. Ships used their quantum displacement drives to appear suddenly beside council vessels while their alien allies targeted specific weak points. The coordination was perfect because they were all fighting for the same thing, freedom. The council formations were designed for overwhelming force and intimidation. They had never faced guerrilla tactics or adaptive strategies. The rigid alien battle plans fell apart under the chaotic creativity of the human-led alliance. Dr. Young Su had equipped the allied ships with weapons that could change their properties during battle. Energy beams that started as plasma became gravity waves that could crush ship hulls. Missiles that began as explosive warheads became electromagnetic pulses that disabled electronics. The council fleet was larger and more powerful, but they were fighting the wrong kind of war. They expected massive ship-to-ship battles with predictable outcomes. Instead, they faced swarms of smaller vessels that attacked from unexpected angles. Supreme Commander Vex found his flagship surrounded by enemies on all sides. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, while alien rebels fired weapons that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. In the middle of the chaos, the Prime Dominator made an ancient challenge that had not been used in over 1,000 years. He demanded single combat with the human leader, winner take all. The challenge was broadcast across the battlefield, and everyone stopped fighting to hear the response. Commander Seokjin was piloting a human fighter when he received the transmission. I accept your challenge, he said simply, but I choose the terms. The two leaders met in the space between their fleets, their ships facing each other, while thousands of vessels watched. The Prime Dominator expected a fight to the death, but Seokjin had other plans. Before we begin fighting, he said over the communication channel, I want to ask you something. Why do you think you have the right to rule over other species? The ancient alien was confused by the question. The council rules because we are strong and others are weak. That is the way of the galaxy. Jin shook his head. That is not strength, that is fear. True strength comes from helping others become stronger, not keeping them weak. The Prime Dominator felt something he had not experienced in 10,000 years. Doubt. For his entire existence he had believed that power meant domination, but these humans seemed to gain strength by sharing it with others. Look around you, Seokjin continued. Your empire is collapsing because you ruled through fear. Our alliance is growing because we fight for freedom. Which one do you think will last longer? The ancient ruler looked at the mixed fleet of humans and aliens working together against his forces. He saw species that had been enemies for centuries now fighting side by side because they shared a common dream. The Prime Dominator realized that his entire way of life was ending. The council had been the predators of the galaxy for so long that they had forgotten how to be anything else. But these humans offered something different, partnership instead of domination. I surrender, he said quietly. The words echoed across the battlefield as thousands of ships heard their supreme ruler give up. The council fleet began powering down their weapons and preparing to withdraw, but the Prime Dominator was not finished speaking. We surrender not just this battle, but everything. The council system of government is ended. From this day forward, the galaxy will be free to choose its own path. The ancient alien had made a choice that would change galactic history forever. Rather than fight to the death and destroy both sides, he chose to step aside and let something new be born across the galaxy. The news spread instantly. The council had not just been defeated, they had voluntarily given up their power. Species that had been slaves for millennia were suddenly free to govern themselves. The transformation would not be easy. Some worlds would struggle without council structure, while others would face civil wars as different groups fought for control. But for the first time in 50,000 years, the galaxy had a chance to choose its own destiny. Humanity had won not through superior firepower, but through the simple idea that all beings deserved to be free. The Council had ruled through fear, but humans had shown that cooperation was stronger than domination. The galaxy would never be the same, and it was all because one species had refused to be afraid. 6 months after the Council's surrender, the galaxy was transforming in ways that no one had ever imagined. The former Council territories were becoming free confederations, where each species could govern itself according to its own values and traditions. President Dayun stood before the First Galactic Assembly, a democratic body that represented over 3,000 different species. The Great Hall was filled with beings of every shape and size, all gathered to discuss the future of their galaxy. My fellow citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice being translated into thousands of languages simultaneously. We are here not as conquerors or rulers, but as partners in building something better than what came before. The transformation had not been easy. Some worlds had fallen into chaos when the Council structure disappeared overnight. Others had been taken over by local warlords who tried to fill the power vacuum with their own tyranny, but humanity had not claimed dominance over the galaxy. Instead, they served as mediators and advisors in the massive restructuring process. Human diplomats worked tirelessly to help species develop their own governments and resolve conflicts peacefully. Ambassador Yuri had spent months on the former Council world of Rigel 7, helping 3 different species learn to share their planet after centuries of forced separation. The process was slow and sometimes frustrating, but gradually they were learning to work together. The economic transformation was equally dramatic. Trade routes that had been controlled by Council monopolies for thousands of years became free markets where any species could participate. Human technology, especially in energy production and space travel, was shared freely rather than hoarded. Engineer Wonho led teams that worked with alien scientists to develop innovations that benefited everyone. The humans had discovered that when different species shared their knowledge, the results were far better than what anyone race could achieve alone. The quantum fusion reactors we developed with the Andromedan engineers can power entire star systems. Wonho reported to Earth Command, and the Centauri navigation computers combined with our dimensional drives have made space travel faster and safer than ever before. Not everyone was happy with the changes. Some former Council species struggled to adapt to their new reality. The Dominion Guard had been bred for warfare and conquest and found it difficult to accept a galaxy where strength was measured by cooperation rather than domination. General Korth was one of the few Council leaders who had survived the transition. He now worked with human military advisors to help former Council soldiers find new purposes. In the peaceful galaxy it is strange, he admitted to General Wu Jin. For 10,000 years, we measured success by how many worlds we conquered. Now you tell us that true success comes from helping others succeed. The transformation was not without its challenges. Pirates and warlords tried to exploit the power vacuum left by the Council collapse. Some tried to restart the old system of rule through fear and intimidation, but the new Galactic Alliance had learned from humanity example. They responded to threats with cooperation rather than conquest. When the warlord Vex9 tried to conquer the Tau SETI System, 3 dozen species sent ships to defend it. The battle was over quickly because the warlord faced not just superior numbers, but superior coordination. The mixed fleet of human and alien vessels fought with the same unity that had defeated the Council. Captain Jae-min led the defense, and afterward he spoke to the captured warlord. Your mistake was thinking that fear could defeat hope. You cannot rule people who are no longer afraid. The most difficult part of the transition was helping species that had been slaves for so long that they had forgotten how to be free. The Varian people had worked in Council factories for 800 years and did not know how to make decisions for themselves. Dr. Hai Young worked with Varian leaders to help them rediscover their own culture and traditions. Many had never heard the old stories or learned the ancient songs of their people. We will help you remember. She promised them freedom is not just about having no masters, it is about remembering who you are. Meant to be educational programs were established to help species recover their lost histories. Human archaeologists worked with alien scholars to piece together cultures that had been suppressed for millennia. The memorial on Luna Station was completed 1 year after the final battle. Captain Hyan Wu, now an elderly man with gray hair, came to visit the monument that honored those who had died in the war. The memorial was simple, a black stone wall with names written in hundreds of different languages. Human names were mixed with alien ones because freedom had been won by all species working together. As Hyan Wu stood before the wall, he remembered the day when the council first threatened humanity. He had been drinking coffee in his quarters when the alarm started screaming. Now he lived in a galaxy where that kind of fear was becoming a memory. A young Varian child approached him cautiously. "Are you really one of the humans who defeated the council?" she asked. "Yes, I am," Hyan Wu replied, kneeling down to her level. "What is your name?" "I am Zara," she said. "My grandfather tells stories about the old days, when we were not allowed to speak our own language." Wu smiled. "Those days are over now. You can speak any language you want and learn about any culture in the galaxy." The child looked up at the memorial wall. "Is this where you remember the people who died?" "Yes," he said. "We remember them because they chose to fight for something better than what they had around." The memorial space station ships from dozens of different species docked and departed freely. The station had become a symbol of the new galaxy where diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. In the observation lounge, children from many worlds played together, learning each other languages and sharing stories about their home planets. Human children grew up alongside alien friends in a galaxy where cooperation was normal. The transformation was far from complete. Some regions still struggled with conflict and others faced economic problems that would take generations to solve, but the foundation had been laid for something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization based on freedom rather than fear, cooperation rather than domination, hope rather than despair. President Dae-Yun gave her final speech to the Galactic Assembly before stepping down to let the new democratic government take over. "We did not defeat the council through superior weapons or greater numbers," she said. "We won because we refused to let fear control our choices. The council threatened us, and we simply said no." The galaxy had learned that sometimes the greatest victories come not from superior firepower but from the courage to stand up to bullies. The phrase "we do not care about your threats" had become a symbol of freedom throughout the stars as the new government took power. Beings across the galaxy looked forward to a future where their children would grow up free. The council had ruled for 50,000 years, but their empire had fallen to a simple idea that all sapient beings deserved to choose their own destiny. The galaxy was finally free, and it had all started when one species refused to be afraid.